Hey there, it's Andrew Dombek, and this is the Get Back with Dombek podcast. And today we have a special guest all the way from Calgary, Canada. This is one of my favorite people in the entire world. She's an inspiration and a hero to me. She is a silver medalist in the 2018 Olympic Games for women's ice hockey. She's none other than my niece, Jillian Saulnier. How are you doing today?
Hey Drew, how are you?
I'm good. It's wicked hot here.
Is
I don't know, I
it?
think it was like 90 degrees here. I don't know what the weather is like out in
You're
Calgary.
bragging because it's -1 and snowing here.
Oh my, that's brutal. Brutal. So tell me what got you started in hockey.
Well, I'm from Halifax, as you know, but your followers may not. And we up in Canada, it's pretty much just a religion to play hockey or to be, somewhat affiliated with ice anywhere. So, my brother played growing up. My dad was a big hockey player, and mom was always there to do whatever we wanted to do, whatever passion we wanted to, take part in. So, mom and dad used to make us a little rink in the backyard and wherever we lived growing up. And I always skated, but I never played hockey. And then my brother was always kind of with a stick in his hand. So when he was playing, mom and dad were eventually like, do you want to go give it a try? And I decided to give it a try, and I never stopped.
Yeah, what was that like playing with your brother?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you battle with your siblings growing up, and I think that that's just something that made us, stronger as we grew up. Brendan and I are best buddies, as you know, and we push each other in our goals and our dreams. And playing with him was always really fun because we got to challenge each other on the ice, we got to challenge each other off the ice, and playing road hockey. So growing up with him and now being able to watch him fulfill his dreams, it's been a pretty cool journey together.
So at some point, weren't you in checking? Like you were involved in full body contact with the boys contact,
Oh
hockey. What
yeah.
was that like?
Oh yeah. Well, I grew up playing boys hockey because there was no girls hockey offered when I was little. So I just grew up playing, timbits with the boys, and then I just went up the ranks with them. But I was always a little bigger, when I was younger, because I grew a little bit quicker than the boys did. So I had no problem playing with them until I was around Pee Wee. I think that's when, checking was introduced slowly and the guys started sprouting up. And I remember I got one big crunch. And every other year my brother was on the team, but I don't think he was on the team this year. So I know that a couple of times I got crunched and he came off the bench and went after him
So
and his buddy.
that's where it started. That's where it started with your brother Brennan in the fisticuffs. It's unfortunate we couldn't get him on he's in quarantine somewhere in Montreal or something. We were hoping to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, he's traveling from Philly, but yeah, I remember one specific time him and our one of our best buddies, Brad Rickman, I got hit and both of them jumped off the bench and came flying. I remember distinctly seeing them from the ice, and I think they got kicked out. But I mean, the guys always had my back growing up. It was pretty cool. So
I think I've come close from getting kicked out of the rink. I think for pounding on the
yeah,
glass.
at Cornell.
No, in Little League when we were,
Oh,
and I think they made an announcement over the loudspeaker and like, please do not tap the glass.
smash the glass.
Yeah, and then they made fun of me. I think because I was there and I'm an American and I'm like, you scored a goal and I like the touchdown signal. So
Yeah, the
everyone,
touchdown.
I'm like, this is such a lame, like, what do? You just point at the goal. That's what the official does. It points. It's such a lame way of celebrating the
so
goal,
American.
So I did that. Yeah, I remember, every time coming home to Canada or what was home or when I was married to your aunt, and there was always some sort of hockey tournament that we were going to. And I remember coming distinctly to one of your tournaments, and I think it was one of the first ones I ever saw when you were playing with the girls. And we got there in the third period and it was tied, and there was only maybe a couple minutes left, and you're in the box. And I'd seen you play with Brennan, but this was something different. You came out of the box like you were shot out of a cannon. You stole the puck, went down the length of the ice and scored. Then you went back to the face-off dot. You won the draw and did it again. Game over, 3-1. And I was just like, my jaw was just like, that it is like you see that sometimes in sports when one player is able to take over a game. And I think that was my first time. I was like, wow, she's got the real skills and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it was fun. There was always a tournament going on. There always will be every time you come home to Canada. And it's true. And it's almost just like another something to do. You come home for a holiday. Okay, well, first there's a tournament and then you can go,
I didn't see any of the sites in Canada. I could tell you about all the hockey rinks that I visited, but I never got to go sightseeing when we were out there.
That's all right. That's the most important thing anyways.
So I remember you as this shy little girl. When did you become so comfortable in front of the camera? I remember the Chronicle Herald did I don't think it was a piece in the sports page. It was the front page of the newspaper in Halifax. And it was all about you and your exploits. And you were like, I remember walking around the rink with you and you're just like, oh, please, no one notice me and stuff like that. When did you become comfortable with
Yeah, I remember that. I had a full panic attack when that happened. I hated attention. Growing up, I hated being seen. And I think I hated that so much because I never wanted anyone else to feel like I was taking their spotlight. I don't know what it was because I was just maybe 10 or 11 when that started. But I think as I got older, and as I continued to work on my game and reach, these different accomplishments, a lot of them came with more attention, and more media attention and just more attention from, teammates and fans and everything. And, I think as I got older, I learned how to properly kind of present myself to the public and to the media. And I think it's something that just comes with sport. And it's also, it's also a duty, it's our job. And I think it's important for us to properly educate, people and fans and, and anyone who's watching, what we're doing and who we are. So I think over time, the more you practice being in front of the camera, the easier it gets for sure. But I'm definitely not feeling the need to hide in the rink anymore if something happens to be in the paper or something.
There's going to be a lot of controversial questions that I ask you here today. Who is a better hockey player then, and who's the better hockey player now?
That's a good question. He's not on the podcast, so I can talk about myself. I don't know if, as I don't know how many of your followers are hockey fans. Hopefully they become hockey fans, but I do have to talk about Brennan. Yeah, I do have to talk about Brennan for a second because, I had a tough journey too, for sure. A lot of sacrifices trying to figure out my path to the top. But he did it himself. Like for those who don't know, and I'm sure he'll tell you this, but he's very humble. So, he might not word it the same, but, this guy was tiny growing up. He was tiny. So I was better than him when we were little because I was bigger. And he was tiny, but as he started to grow, he started to, his dreams started to grow to be in the NHL one day. And I remember he would just make phone calls. He would just find out where he needed to be seen. And he would call the coaches and he would be like, I want to play here because I want to go, to this team. And they would say, okay, well, come for a tryout. And he would go, he'd pack his bags and go. And he was like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid. And it was so admirable to him. And I learned so much from him because, he made his way out west to junior to do that. And, and he came down to visit me at Cornell. He saw how much fun I was having and how important education was, got himself a scholarship to Alabama, took a full ride there, and then found out how to get to where he is now in the AHL, potentially, a look in the NHL. So, I think it's just whoever's journey, you're watching. I think you learn different things from each of us, but I learned a lot from that guy for sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I love Brendan. Brendan, I've got so many stories that I wanted to embarrass him about from growing up. We'll get that. But yeah, Brendan is definitely determined like no other. And he's done it on his own. And I know he even made the call to get himself, playing with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms this past year. And then he just showed him what he has, and they, just rewarded him with 1-year contract for next year, which is, awesome to be able to get paid to be playing a game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love him. And even though he's part of the Flyers organization, we're Caps fans here.
It's okay. I'm a Habs fan. So.
Yeah. So growing up, who were some of the people that who were your idols? Who were your hockey idols?
From a hockey idol perspective, I was obsessed with the women's national team. I remember I had these massive cards of them in like a little photo book that my mom picked me out from Walmart probably, or the dollar store. And, I got to watch them at Worlds in Halifax in 2004, which was canceled this year, which is a whole other ball game. But
we might get to that later. Yeah,
we'll get to that. Yeah, that could get heated. So, but yeah, no, I look up. I looked up to, Haley Wickenheiser, Cassie Campbell, Gina Kingsbury, Jana Hefford, who's, running this PW stuff. So, I mean, all these idols that I had growing up, I got to watch on TV. I didn't get to meet much, or they weren't as accessible, as we are now to the youth and to the next generation. But, being able to watch them and see what they did and, and watch them play for Team Canada was always really inspiring to me. And, I think it's pretty cool. It's full circle because, a lot of them are involved in Hockey Canada right now. Gina Kingsbury is the GM of Hockey Canada. Jana Hefford runs our, the PWHPA, which is the future of women's hockey. And Cassie is a mentor with Hockey Canada. So she's at all our events with us and with us on our Olympic journey. So I think it's really cool that it's full circle. I was roommates with Wickenheiser when we were teammates in Calgary, and she was my line mate. So I think, it's cool for us as women's hockey players is we dream to be these players, and then we get to experience our dream with them.
I remember a story. Tell us about the story when I think you were playing in the provincial games and you got into the elevator with Haley for the first time as, you were going to, do you remember that?
Like that was like way. Yeah.
That was before you got picked up on the national team.
Yeah, I was so scared. I was so nervous. But I mean, that was my idol. You get to meet your idol. That's every little kid's dream, right? Is to meet your idols.
But you're missing the story was that I remember that you told me was you got in an elevator and Haley was in there, and that you hadn't seen her since when she was at the World Championships. And she starts speaking with you and she's asking you who you're going to go see downstairs. And she's like, yeah, who's your sister? And you're like, no one, I'm playing, I'm playing against you today.
I don't even remember that. It was so long ago, but that was because I went out there with a Nova Scotia group and we played in a tournament out West. And yeah, I was playing against her, but I was tiny. I was like 13 or 14 years old. And it was so eye-opening to be able to play with, some of the best players in the world and, follow in their footsteps.
So in order to make your dreams come true, at 15, you guys determine you have to leave home.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? And how did that experience, what did that experience provide you?
Yeah, so I went to Berkshire prep school when I was 15, which was in Massachusetts, Sheffield, Massachusetts. And, like I said, I grew up playing in Halifax and, and I was in Pee Wee, I think, and I was playing with the midget girls, which is 4 technically age groups above. And it just wasn't, it wasn't at the level that I needed it to be for me to make, the dream come true. So I think we all as a family kind of, decided, that the best thing to do was to leave and to go put myself in a position, to challenge myself and to grow and to be a better athlete. So I think it was one of those decisions that you don't really want to make, but you kind of know that you have to make. So you pretend that you want to make it, but you really don't. And that's what we did. And, and I know that it was hard on my family. It was really hard on them to, to lose their little girl at 15. But, I think now, when they look back at that decision, it was totally worth it.
Yeah, I remember that was tough. It was a tough decision. And I know Lulu and I helped support, we were like, hey, we know what her dream is, and anything and everything. I think we helped out with some tuition there. And I think I even sponsored you when you went on to play in like Ontario. I have my patch. I'm like all the way down in Ashburn, Virginia. You've got like some random patch on your jersey with my company logo.
Probably, yeah.
So you've made the national team, you've played for your country in the world championships, you've played in the Olympics. What was all that like for you?
I mean, it's just, it's the journey. I was watching a video this morning about a kid who was a valedictorian at his school, and he was talking about, accomplishments and what it felt like to accomplish something so big, and, and the sacrifices. And, the moral of his story was to just, enjoy, the journey of it and not get so stuck on the final goal. And I think for me, it's just been such an incredible life. I've been so blessed with the sport, and, I've met some of my favorite people in the whole world from it. And my family, as has been able to, be such a huge part of making all these happen and being a foundation of it. So, to represent Canada, that's always been my goal, is to wear the national jersey and, and ultimately make it to the Olympics. That's the top for us. That's once you hit that, like, that's the end all be all. And, to experience that, to walk into the opening ceremonies, and then to play, the sport that, we used to just play on the street, play in our backyards, for a living. It's pretty cool. And it's definitely something that I don't take for granted.
So would you say that your career has gone the way you've envisioned it, as, growing up as a little girl?
I think my end goal was to make the Olympic team, was to make Team Canada and to make it happen. I wouldn't say that it happened as I envisioned it, because I don't know if you've seen that graph that says like you and then your goal, and then there's like a straight line, and then they exit that whole graph out, and then they put, your goal, and then like a million zigzags.
Yes.
That's definitely how I would say my journey has gone. And I think most athletes that you speak to, or anyone that you speak to who has a goal of any sort will say that there's so many ups and downs, and it's just about how you manage them, and making sure that you keep your eye on, on your goal, and you're always doing, what you need to do to be, a good athlete, but, more importantly, a good person. And at the end of the day, that's really all that mattered for me.
So I'm a physical therapist. I own my own PT company, AID Performance Physical Therapy, here in Ashburn. We have to talk about, how does this relate to PT? So we're going to hit up some injuries. So was there a time in your career when you were injured and you were not going to let the injury, no matter what the consequences, derail you from playing in a game?
I feel like the answer to this based on the question. For everyone else that doesn't know, I used to play soccer growing up. I was actually a pretty good soccer player, and to the point where when I was 15, I had to kind of make the decision: was I going to continue to play soccer or hockey, or could I do both? And I ended up not playing soccer because I was worried about my knees, or blowing a knee or injuring myself. And then I went to the Olympics, and ironically, I blew my knee out in the semifinal game. So it was against Russia, and a girl fell on me behind the net, and I heard a pop, and you were there. So you actually, you saw my, reaction, my response, but I ended up playing the rest of the game. I don't really know how, because my knee wasn't even really attached, but I think, I only had 30 hours until the gold medal game, and my whole life was dedicated to 60 minutes, the next day. And I had a blown out knee. So I think that was definitely the experience that, I didn't care. I didn't care if I had one leg. I didn't care if I had one arm. I didn't care if I had, no MCL. I think I remember getting a little bit of an argument with my GM because she said, we can't let you play. And I said, I'm so sorry. I can't let you say that. I can't let you determine that. So I think that was really tough, but what we ended up doing was, we ordered in, I don't know how it got there, one of those big ACL bracelets, or braces, which, I'm sure Eden had that on for a little bit. The biggest metal one that you could buy. I don't know why it needed to be that big, but and they put it on my leg and they said, listen, if you can't get any worse, then go, we can't stop you. So I remember I ended up snapping my shin pad in half, taking a hockey lace and putting it over top of the brace because it didn't fit under my gear, and just taping it up and hopping on the ice for the gold medal game. And they weren't putting me out in the first period because I think they said, you're hurt, like if we can't play you. And then I remember turning to my coach and just being like, I'm ready to go, like please put me out. And she did. She put me out and she let me finish the game. And we didn't win the game. We lost in a shootout to US, and it was tough, but that was definitely a lesson for me for sure. And just a lesson of adversity and adrenaline.
Yeah, I mean, what do I know? In my opinion, I think they should have played you more in that game. I don't think you played as much as they needed to play you in the third period, but we could go on and on about that.
Yeah, don't bring that
up. But playing in that game with the possibility of making your injury worse, apparently, you've already said that you didn't care. It was a gold medal game, but at any other point in your career, have you had an injury where you thought about it, that, hey, if I play, this is going to be a problem? Or
yeah, oh my God, tons. So I've done everything once at least. I broke my wrist in high school, I remember, and I prolonged the healing for that because I wanted to play. I got in trouble because I cut my brace off with my roommate so I could sneak it, under my glove. And I've learned, on many occasions as I'm getting older, I'm very fortunate up here to be around, a ton of physios and learn a lot, from you and from, the others that are around here of how important it is, to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies. And, I think now, especially now, if I do anything, tweak anything, that's my priority. My priority is my body. It's not working out anymore. It's not skating. It's, how can I make sure that my body's in the best possible conditions so that, come game time, I'm ready to peak. So I think now for sure, I'm definitely more aware. When I was growing up, I didn't care as much. I was a little bit more carefree. But for sure now that I'm, been educated on the importance of it, it's crucial in a lasting career.
So would you define yourself then as a tough athlete? Because toughness is not a man or a woman thing. They're tough humans and not so tough humans. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think you're either tough or you're not. And, I think toughness comes in all forms. But I've definitely learned how to be not only physically tough, but mentally tough. I think those go hand in hand. And I think as an athlete, as you grow up and as you get older, you need to be, the stronger you are, toughness wise, mentally and physically, the further your career is going to go on and continue. So I think I've been really blessed with some, really crappy experiences that have forced me to, learn and push my limits on how tough I can be.
Yeah, I've spoken to some. We had another guest on, Seth Kaplan, who is a sports psychologist, and I'm kind of glad you dropped the mental part, because I want to know, how did you cope with getting left off? I think you were left off a world championship team, and then you were also left off the 2014 Winter Olympic team. How were you able to bounce back from that?
Yeah, no, that was hard. The toughest one for me was definitely the 2018 World Championship team. And I think the reason that was so difficult was because I was on the team with the national team on this trajectory, for 10 years before that, and everything kind of seemed like it was going in place. And then to be left off of that roster for that tournament was really hard for me. And at first it was something that I didn't know how to cope with because I wasn't expecting it. And I think that as an athlete, that's how you get mentally tough, and more mentally tough is going through experiences, and learning how to deal with tough experiences. So for me, that was hard. And the way that I coped with that was, taking some time away from the sport, and then coming back stronger and coming back hungrier. And for me, that, the way that I responded to that got me on the Olympic team. And looking back now, if I hadn't responded like that, I wouldn't have an Olympic experience under my belt.
So Canada's lost the last Olympic Games, as we know, and a heartbreaker, and countless number of world championships. This year's world championship, for some obscene reason, has been canceled. And like I said, we'll get back to that question. What have you taken, if anything, from those losses, and has that helped you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have had some really heartbreaking games, and results. And, being a part of the national team, it's all about process. It's all about, the steps leading into it. And I remember our GM sent us in the mail, years ago. I think it was honestly the week after the Olympics, a little clock, a time clock that started a countdown from the day of the gold medal game to the day of the gold medal game of 2022. And it never stops. It's just been counting down. So you can see, how many days have gone by and how many are left. And, I think for me, it's about learning, it's about learning from those losses. What did we do wrong? What can we fix? How can we be stronger? How can we be tougher? How can we be more united, and not only as a team, but also as an athlete. So, I think you can have so many punches and it hurt and sting every time, but every time you also get to learn a lesson of how to get that much closer to your actual goal. So for me, it's just been about, using those moments, those silvers, lots of silvers as motivation, for a goal, for that gold medal.
So it was disappointing that we didn't get the Worlds. It was a way for the team to be evaluated so they could move forward with picking a roster, or the centralization for the roster to make it to next year's Olympics. You were recently named, so proud of you, to be centralized, but you were one of 13 that were chosen from the 23 players that were on the previous Olympics team, and currently one of 28 vying for a spot on next year's team. What is that doing for your motivation now to get you, what can you do to get to that next level again?
Yeah. I had an interview this morning with someone who brought this up and said, it seems like, it's not as exciting as because you made a second time, or people kind of assumed. And I literally had to stop her, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, that is just so not the case. Like, if anything, I was more excited to be named to it this time, because, I just know that I can bring that much more. And and I've had, the experience. And I think experience is huge when it comes to sport and major events like this. So for me, moving forward towards that gold medal and towards that Olympic roster is, just to use the same skills, the same tactics, the same plan that I've always had, to get better every day. But now I have experience. So now, adding that to my little toolkit, I know is going to help for sure. And it's going to make me a better athlete. And like I said before, you learn from your past, and you learn from your losses and from your wins. But, for me, I know, the things that are going to get me to the next level. I know the things that are going to keep me where I am. So I think when it comes to that, and it comes to the next, 7 months, whenever we get there finally, it's all going to be about bringing those last experiences and learning from them, and just being a better person and a better athlete overall.
So one of the things that is lacking, I guess, for the women's game, and with the loss of the world championships, and hopefully the Olympics go on, is the viewership, the momentum coming from typically the USA Canada game afterwards. When people don't realize the women's game is physical, but they're not allowing checking in the women's game. There's no open ice hits. Like I said, the game is clearly physical. Is that what attracts people to the game more? And do you think allowing checking would bring more attention to the game? The women's game, that is.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good question. You know, for people who, you know this because you've seen all my games, but for those who don't, I think the assumption, you know, is that, oh, there's no checking, so there's no physicality. If you go online and you Google any Canada-US game, you know, there's at least 1 or 2 fights in the game, and it is physical. And you know, some refs, you know, are great and kind of let things go a little bit and let us be a little bit more physical. But you know, we train our bodies, and we aim for these, you know, these strong, powerful physiques so that we can, you know, we can be powerful and we can win every physical battle. But I think what brings attention and what brings visibility to the women's game is its speed. I know that, you know, for a lot of different sports, you know, that is the most attractive quality in a sport. And, you know, for those who haven't watched, you know, a female hockey game, you know, please turn on the TV when we play, because it's so fast. And it's so fast because we now, you know, we have the skills and we have the people now, you know, like physiotherapists, you know, like mental strength coaches, like our strength and conditioning, who know what we are supposed to do to put us in that position physically, mentally, so that we can be, you know, so powerful and so fast and make it an attractive sport to watch. And I mean, if you look at the viewership in the last Olympics, you know, I think our last game had 3 or 4 million viewers, which was the second most popular thing to watch at the Olympics, other than Tessa and Scott's, you know, figure skating win. So I think for people who don't watch women's hockey, you know, I always say this, I've sent this to my buddies who haven't been to a game, just come to one, and then you'll change your mind.
Yeah, I remember when you were in college, it must have been your freshman year, and we were playing at Lina, which is dubbed the Cameron Indoor Stadium version of hockey. It gets super loud, you know, for a men's game. And the women's game, I want to say, was the regional championship. And I think you guys were playing Tpow's team.
Okay, yeah.
I think Boston.
Yeah.
And the game, I was sitting next to some Cornell professors there. And, you know, the game was super fast and super exciting. It was a back and forth game. And the game ended in regulation 9-9. Like you won.
Oh, that was to go to the Frozen Four.
Yeah, the regional, they consider a regional championship or something like that. Yes. Regional finals, whatever. Yeah. And I just remember that as the game went on, more and more people kept coming into the stadium. And it was probably, I don't think there wasn't very many games that we didn't go to, important ones when you played at Cornell. And that one just sticks in my mind as the people just kept coming in. And I remember the professor next to me had never been to a women's hockey game. He's like, I came to a women's game and a men's game broke out because it was so physical. And the game, it was amazing. It was tied 9-9, and then it went to triple overtime.
It was
crazy. And then you have a defenseman who doesn't score much go end to end. Yeah. Falling down backwards over her head.
Oh, somehow, it was like the nicest goal ever.
Somehow scores with time expiring. It was definitively a top 10 play. And it was just like, God, people are missing out on this game that it's a beautiful game. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, it was amazing that, you know, this really allegedly intelligent, you know, Cornell professor. I went to Ithaca College. That was a, you know, slight at your alma mater there.
That's okay. That's fair.
But yeah, so, you know, your brother, you know, brings a lot of attention to his game. He is wickedly talented. He's uber fast. He's very skilled. He was the runt growing up, as we said, when we never thought he was going to make it. You know, we kept saying, all right, what are we going to play instead? And he kept persevering. And then all of a sudden he goes to college and he's like third in the nation, like penalty minutes. And then he gets to play in the professionals, and he's known as he's a brawler. You know, his rookie year in the ECHL, he's an all-star. He goes 20 goals, 20 assists, his best, you know, in a shortened year because of COVID. And is also like, you know, an incredible fighter. He's, you know, the southpaw that's ridiculously fast. he's mixed it up with guys that are twice his size. I mean, and he only weighs 170 pounds. You know, you talked about, you think the speed is lacking, but what about, the men's game is watched for the speed and excitement, but in the hockey enthusiasts, but there's also an element of fighting that the novice hockey guys like. What do you think would happen, like, if they allowed the women to drop gloves? I mean,
Drop the gloves.
hell, I mean, we have women's UFC fights, and they're very well watched, and they pay to watch those. So, let the women go down.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Brennan wouldn't be the only Saulnier fighting if that was allowed. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
That's all right. So do you think that would help? Do you think that would, help the game out? Let the girls throw down every once.
Go down. You know what? Honestly, I know that, from the men's games perspective too, Brennan does bring that. He is so feisty, and I wouldn't want to fight him. And I talked to him before games, and he says, yeah, I'm probably going to fight this guy. He's the biggest guy on the team. And he just says it like so nonchalantly, because he knows. He's like, I need to do what people won't do, so people can see what they're not looking for. And he's done it. He just keeps doing it continuously. And, and he's so fast and powerful. And, it's tough to beat someone like that, who's that hungry. And, I think for the women's game, I think, we bring, there is just so much physicality. I don't know the history of not letting any fighting, but, I think from a speed perspective, I think that's the main focus of our game, is talent and speed. And, I'm sure you'll see, a fight at some point, but, definitely something that's kind of actually weeding out of the men's game also. Cause I know they're actually, the skill is just continuing to grow immensely. And it's just overall men's and women's, it's just a good game to watch,
I mean, I think this year I think the fights have been up, but I think that's because the teams have been playing 8 games against, rivals, you got
the same teams.
Yeah. The Caps and the Pens, the Bruins and the Caps, it's going to get, it's going to get feisty after, playing. And the same thing with Brennan's team this year, they played just 3 other hockey teams. And so you knew that at some point,
someone's going to get under their skin for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's a major, in women's sports, there's a major pay gap, especially in women's hockey. What's going on? Why can't we get one league? I know in the past there was a CWHL and a NWHL. And why can't we, like, if you just took like 1% of all of the male hockey players, in the NHL, and took that, I would think that you would be able to fund the league and women wouldn't have to work. They could play. Like, what's stopping, what are the obstacles to getting that done?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost an exhausting topic to talk about, because when I put things into perspective of what, the girls are doing here, to be able to play, first of all, the girls in Montreal who are playing, with our pro team, work 9 to 5, sometimes more. Like, I'm sitting on the plane, I'm sitting behind, an engineer, a teacher, someone in statistics, someone, in like whatever job there is, and they're working 9 to 5, and then they're rushing over to the rink and they're playing because they love the sport. And I just think that, you see some of the athletes, especially, some of my favorite athletes play on the women's US soccer team. And I know Rapinoe is just such a face for it, and she makes some incredible statements about it. And I think it's just something that is just, we're still working for. And I don't know why, because, now people say, oh, it's because of the numbers, because the fans, people don't watch as much. But now people don't have that argument anymore. You go to a US women's soccer game is probably the toughest ticket in sport to get in the States, arguably, and when you come up to Canada, a Canada US game, like, we're filling arenas with like 18,000 people. Like, it's crazy. But I think constantly people fall back on, oh, it's, it's not as popular, blah, blah, blah. And it's just noise at this point. And we're just trying so hard to make a statement. And and make those moves. But for us, our main goal right now is to make a league. We're working with this PWHPA, which is, a united group of the Canadian and the American Olympians, as well as, girls coming out of college, girls who have played in the CW before, and girls that just want to see one successful, financially stable league so that girls can have somewhere to dream to play. Right now, the only place that you can dream to play for, is Team Canada. That's 23 players. Like, it's pretty hard to look at a little girl in the face and say, okay, you got to be one of 23 in 20 years. Like, that's just it. We need something more for these girls to dream to become.
Yeah, I mean, I'm calling out the NHL players because I know Alex Ovechkin just became an investor in the local Washington Spirit, the professional women's soccer team that's here. That, Kelly O'Hara and Emily Sonnet, and he just announced he and his wife have become, in part of the investor group for them. But going back to the league, is there enough talent to sustain a league?
Yes, more than enough talent. That's the thing, is that, 2 years ago when our league folded with the CW, the US national girls and the Canadian national girls had a big phone call. And this is all stuff that happened, behind the scenes that people don't see, unless you're on those calls, saying, okay, let's unite here. We need a voice. Billie Jean King is a huge voice for us, and, came and said, you guys need to use your voices here. Like, you need to make this happen, and it's going to come from the players. So, for us, I think it's just a matter of making sure that we're doing something sustainable so that it lasts forever. Right now, you have arguably the best players in the world that want to make something happen, that are going to play for longer if it is, and long enough so that when the next generation grows up, they can take our places. And I think that it is a snowball that's, growing, but it's growing very, very slowly. So, obviously I'm hopeful that something will happen soon.
All right. This is the last question. I know you got to go. This is the question. The men had the NHL season. They had every IIHF World Championship this year. Then we get time for the World Championships to be played in your hometown of Halifax after being canceled last year, because of COVID. And this year, how could they cancel that, but yet let the men, and knowing that the viewership and the importance of your team, as well as, it's a national pastime in Canada is hockey, that you'll get more sponsorship dollars if you play these games. How could they cancel this? And why, is it going to happen? Like, how did you feel when you heard that they canceled this after already putting on men's championships?
Yeah, I mean, that was just so devastating. We were getting ready for our third game of our tryout in Halifax. We had already been there for a week in this crazy bubble. And, and for those who don't know, like, I'm in another one right now. Like, I feel like half of my year, 3/4 of my year, I've been living in a hotel room without opening a door. And I'm okay with that, as long as, things are going to happen, things are, the ball is going to roll and I'm going to get back on the ice. And, the really upsetting and unfortunate thing about the Worlds being canceled, not only was it in my hometown, that's, it was on the same ice surface that I saw the girls playing in 2004 that I literally dreamed of playing on, one day. So it would have really been a Cinderella story for me for sure. But, looking at the group that we had, and, and the athletes that we had, we were going to win that championship and we were going to win our gold medal. I know it. And it was robbed of us. It really was. And it was big, it's so hard to look back now because we did everything that we could have. Hockey Canada said, this is the bubble that you're going to go in. We were going to have tracking bracelets on our wrists so that they could tell if we open our hotel room door. Like, we were so locked down. They pumped so much money to get these teams personal flights over and enter this bubble. And we were tested all the time. And we did everything we could have, from a COVID perspective, to make sure that it was going to happen. And we were this close. Like, we were just like an afternoon away. And, it was decided, it was decided by the province that that they didn't want it to happen. They didn't want, it was, I don't know.
Shame on them, because if Sidney Crosby was coming up there to play an exhibition, I think the doors would be wide open and they would, nothing would go away. One last question. I lied. I've been to the arena that you're speaking of where the Mooseheads play, and they have the local Hall of Fame there. I haven't been home to Halifax. Are you up there yet?
I think they have a stick in there. I'm not 100% sure. Someone asked me for a stick after the Olympics, but I haven't been home because of COVID. Like I don't know if everybody knows down there, you're following, I'm assuming is mostly American, but it's pretty locked down still up here. Like we had a curfew at 8 p.m. in Montreal that we had to be inside. And, I wasn't able to go home for Christmas for the first time because we have a 2-week quarantine. Doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. And so I haven't even been home to, share anything with anyone there. But I do think vaguely that I remember someone taking a stick from me, but hopefully at some point I can squeeze my way in there.
They better, otherwise Grampy Stan better get on his
letter writing, he's in there.
letter writing campaign. I would love to have, we talked about the gender pay gap and the lack of visibility and stuff. I would love to be able to have either you and some of your teammates, as well as maybe either the women's hockey players or the women's soccer players that are around here to come on a panel, just to bring more light to all the women's sports,
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I think that's what has to happen, Drew, is like people need to, to open the doors for us to speak. And I think that's the biggest thing, is the lack of visibility. But when people, see us play our sports or hear us talk, then, sometimes, you just need the right mind to change so that, something can happen. So I think that's great that you're doing that and that you care, enough to, to open the doors to that. And I mean, obviously, all of us soccer players, especially for Eden, are trying to do this for the future. We're not doing it for us anymore. It's just, we're in our 20s, 30s, right? So we're doing this for the next generation.
Yeah, if you get him to come on, I wrote Kelly O'Hara, I sent her a message, but I don't know how much. I got to get on her coach, who I know, say if we can get them on there. But if you can pull some strings on your end, I mean, this is a forum. The more we do this, because I know Kelly O'Hara has her own podcast, that the more we talk about this, the more we put it in front of everybody. I have a daughter and I have you, and you guys are some of the, Eden's soccer skills surpassed any of my soccer skills. I'm learning from her, it's crazy. Awesome. But I love you. I am so proud of you. I got your back. Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck. And we'll see you in the Olympics
soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Drew. Love you. Thanks for having me.
Bye.